Hello, everyone. They won't announce it on the evening news. There won't be a siren, no red banner flashing across your phone. But right now, behind closed doors, decisions are being discussed that could change who gets access to real money and who doesn't. Imagine waking up 3 days from now and realizing the door quietly closed. Silver, the asset ordinary people could still touch, hold, and own, suddenly restricted. And the question won't be, what happened? The question will be, what did you do when you still had time? I want to take you back for a moment, not to a chart or a headline, but to a feeling. The feeling of watching prices rise while you hesitated. The feeling of knowing, deep down, that something mattered. But you waited for more confirmation, more comfort, more permission. Most people don't fail because they're stupid. They fail because they delay. And silver has always punished delay. There was a time when silver was treated as boring. Just metal, just coins, just something your grandfather talked about. And that was exactly when the quiet builder stepped in. I remember speaking to a small business owner who didn't start rich. He didn't inherit anything. But every month, while others chased hype, he bought a little silver. Not because it was exciting, but because it was honest. Years later, when inflation crushed margins and debt ate competitors alive, his balance sheet held. Not because he was lucky, because he was early and disciplined. Here's the first truth most people miss. Wealth is built before the crowd agrees. Silver never screams, it whispers. And right now, that whisper sounds like urgency. Think about this. Paper assets can be frozen, accounts can be limited, rules can change overnight. But silver in your possession answers to no committee. That's why it matters. That's why it's always targeted. And that's why moments like this, when regulators meet, when language shifts, when timelines compress, separate spectators from participants. Another example. A young couple, both working regular jobs, felt trapped, paycheck to paycheck, saving cash that lost value every year. They didn't try to get rich fast. They made a decision to convert effort into something real. Slowly, consistently, silver became their savings account. When crises hit, they didn't panic. They had options. And options are what freedom looks like in real life. Here's a micro truth to sit with. The system doesn't warn you loudly before it protects itself. It moves quietly. And by the time the rules are obvious, the opportunity is gone. Silver isn't about fear. It's about foresight. It's about understanding cycles. Every generation gets a moment where the average person can still step ahead of inflation, still protect purchasing power, still opt out just a little from a rigged game. This might be that moment. Ask yourself something honest. If silver buying became restricted tomorrow, would you wish you had acted today? That feeling, that regret, is the cost of inaction. And it's always higher than the cost of preparation. Action doesn't mean recklessness. It means intention. It means learning the difference between paper promises and physical ownership. It means buying steadily, not emotionally. It means viewing silver not as a trade, but as stored time and effort. Hours of your life preserved. Another microhook to remember. You don't rise to the level of your hopes, you fall to the level of your habits. Wealth is habit, freedom is habit, and silver rewards habits. There's a mindset shift that changes everything. Stop asking, how much can I make? Start asking, how much can I keep? Because those who keep value through chaos are the ones who later seize opportunity when others are desperate. Picture the future version of you. Calm, not panicked by headlines, not begging systems for permission, grounded. That version isn't built in comfort. It's built in moments like this, when action feels slightly uncomfortable but deeply right. If you choose to act, act wisely. Start with what you can afford. Prioritize physical ownership. Think long term. Diversify within silver forms. And most importantly, detach from noise. The best investors are boring. They move before the crowd and they sleep well after. This isn't about betting against the world. It's about betting on yourself, on your discipline, on your ability to see value where others see boredom. Silver has been money longer than any currency alive today. That alone should make you pause. Silver never becomes valuable when everyone is talking about it. By the time headlines are loud, shelves are empty, and rules are already written. The real value of silver shows up in the quiet moments before restriction, before panic, before permission is taken away. History keeps repeating this pattern, and most people still miss it because they're trained to react instead of prepare. They wait for confirmation, for official announcements, for comfort. But markets don't reward comfort. They reward awareness. Think about every major shift in wealth throughout history. Those who benefited most were never the last ones rushing in. They were the early ones acting while everything still felt normal. When silver is easy to buy, when dealers still smile, when regulations are just rumors, that's when its upside is the greatest. Not because the price has already exploded, but because access still exists. Access is the hidden value most people underestimate. Silver is unique because it sits at the intersection of money and necessity. It's not just an investment, it's a strategic asset. It's used in industry, energy, technology, medicine, and at the same time, it has served as money for thousands of years. That combination makes it dangerous to a system built on control. And whenever something threatens control, the response is never sudden honesty, it's gradual limitation. Most people assume restriction comes after chaos, but in reality it comes before. Before the shortage is obvious, before the public agrees there's a problem, before the average person feels urgency. That's why silver rewards foresight more than intelligence. You don't need to be a genius, you just need to be early enough to understand that freedom shrinks quietly. There's a psychological trap here. When silver is calm, it feels boring. When it's boring, people ignore it. And when people ignore it, that's when smart money accumulates. Because boredom is the disguise opportunity wears. The moment silver becomes exciting, dramatic, emotional, that's usually the moment risk increases and options decrease. Look at how restrictions have worked in the past. They never start with an outright ban. They start with meetings, discussions, policy language, temporary measures, and market stability. Each step sounds reasonable on its own, but together they form a wall that didn't exist before. And once the wall is up, climbing it becomes expensive or impossible. Silver's true power isn't just in price appreciation, it's in optionality. Owning it before restrictions means you choose when to sell, when to hold, when to convert. Owning it after restrictions means you ask permission. And wealth behaves very differently depending on who controls the timing. This is why seasoned investors don't wait for clarity. Clarity usually arrives when opportunity has already transferred hands. They act when uncertainty is highest and access is still open. That's not recklessness, that's understanding cycles. Every cycle begins with disbelief, moves through quiet accumulation, then ends in loud realization. Silver sits right now in that disbelief zone for most people. They hear rumors and dismiss them. They see meetings and assume nothing will change. They trust that tomorrow will look like today. But wealth is built by those who understand that tomorrow is shaped by decisions made quietly today. Owning silver before restriction is not about fear, it's about positioning. It's about converting effort into something that doesn't depend on policies, promises, or platforms. It's about understanding that once everyone wants the same thing, the price isn't just higher, the rules are tighter. When access is easy, people delay. When access tightens, people panic. And panic is the most expensive way to enter any market. The calm buyer always beats the emotional buyer. The prepared investor always beats the reactive one. Silver's rare opportunity exists in this narrow window where it's still obtainable, still underestimated, still debated. That window never stays open long, and those who recognize it don't need loud confirmation. They understand that the greatest moves happen before the crowd realizes anything moved at all. Wealth has never been built in moments of chaos, even though chaos is what gets all the attention. Real wealth is formed quietly, in seasons where nothing seems urgent, where the crowd is distracted, where preparation looks unnecessary. Loud moments come later after the foundations are already laid. By the time panic hits, positions are taken and doors are closed. The difference between those who survive financially and those who struggle is rarely intelligence, it's timing and temperament. Quiet preparation feels uncomfortable because it offers no applause. No one praises you for buying something before it becomes popular. No one congratulates you for thinking long-term while everyone else is chasing short-term excitement. That discomfort pushes most people away. They'd rather move when everyone else is moving because it feels safer, even though it's usually more dangerous. The wealthy understand something simple. Noise is a signal to be cautious. Silence is a signal to pay attention. When financial media is calm and assets are ignored, that's when value is often being transferred. Preparation during these moments doesn't look heroic, it looks boring. But boredom is where discipline thrives. Think of preparation like building a shelter before the storm. Hammering wood on a sunny day feels pointless to those who only act when rain starts falling. They laugh at the effort, they delay, they assume they'll figure it out later. But once the storm arrives, there's no time to build, only time to react. And reaction is always more expensive than preparation. This principle applies directly to silver and wealth building. When silver is overlooked, supply chains are stable and access is easy, preparation is possible. You can choose quality, timing, and strategy. You're not rushed, you're not emotional, you're acting from clarity. When noise enters the picture, options disappear, prices jump, availability shrinks, and decisions become forced instead of intentional. Most people confuse movement with progress. They think acting during chaos means they're doing something important. In reality, chaos is the market testing who prepared and who didn't. Those who prepared move calmly through volatility. Those who didn't feel stress, fear, and regret. There's also a mindset shift required. Quiet preparation means accepting that results won't show immediately. It means trusting process over hype. It means understanding that wealth compounds invisibly before it becomes visible. The seed grows underground long before anyone sees a tree. Many successful investors didn't start with massive capital. They started with consistency. Small, repeated actions taken while others were distracted. Over time, those actions built resilience. When crises came, they weren't scrambling to protect themselves. They were positioned to take advantage of opportunity. The loudest voices in finance usually appear at the worst times. They show up to explain what already happened, not what's about to happen. Quiet builders don't need explanations. They've already done the work. That's why they seem lucky later, even though luck had nothing to do with it. Preparation also builds confidence. When you know you've thought ahead, fear loses its grip. You don't react to every headline. You don't chase every rumor. You move deliberately. That calm becomes a competitive advantage, especially when others are panicking. Silver, like all real assets, rewards this approach. It doesn't respond well to emotional buying or rushed decisions. It rewards patience, consistency, and foresight. Those qualities are developed in quiet moments, not loud ones. Every major financial reset reveals the same pattern. The prepared gain leverage, the unprepared lose options. And preparation always happened earlier than people think. Long before the news, long before the warnings felt real, long before action felt necessary. Quiet preparation isn't dramatic, but it's powerful. It doesn't make headlines, but it changes outcomes. And when the noise finally arrives, the work is already done. Physical silver represents something most people no longer think about: preserved effort. Every ounce is time that didn't disappear, work that wasn't diluted, energy that wasn't quietly taken away. In a world where value is increasingly digital, abstract, and permission-based, holding something tangible changes the psychology of ownership. It's no longer a number on a screen that can be adjusted, paused, or explained away. It's real, measurable, and independent. When you exchange currency for physical silver, you're not speculating, you're converting. You're taking hours of your life and locking them into a form that doesn't rely on trust in institutions to exist. That shift alone creates a different relationship with money. You stop seeing wealth as something fragile and start seeing it as something grounded. Most people store their labor in places they don't control: bank accounts, retirement plans, digital platforms. These systems work until they don't, and when they don't, the rules change quickly. Physical silver sits outside that structure. It doesn't ask for login credentials. It doesn't depend on market hours. It doesn't care about policy language. This is where freedom quietly enters the conversation. Freedom isn't about rebellion or extremes. It's about optionality. It's about having choices when others are trapped by circumstances. Silver doesn't make you rich overnight, but it gives you time, leverage, and flexibility when systems tighten. Think about how many people work their entire lives only to realize their purchasing power eroded faster than their savings grew. They didn't fail. The system simply changed around them. Physical silver interrupts that erosion. It doesn't generate promises, it holds value. And holding value in uncertain times is a form of progress most people underestimate. There's also a mental discipline that comes with owning something tangible. You're less likely to panic, sell what you can hold. You're less likely to chase trends when your wealth has weight and presence. That stability carries into other areas of life. Decision-making improves, stress decreases, patience increases. Historically, during periods of monetary transition, those who held real assets retained autonomy. They weren't immune to hardship, but they weren't powerless. Silver has played that role repeatedly, not because of theory, but because of behavior. People trust what they can verify with their hands. Storing labor in physical form also forces intentionality. You don't accumulate it impulsively. You think about security, storage, timing. The thoughtfulness separates builders from gamblers. It turns saving into strategy instead of habit. Freedom isn't the absence of problems. It's the presence of preparation. Physical silver doesn't solve everything, but it removes certain vulnerabilities. It gives you a layer of insulation against shocks you can't predict but can prepare for. The idea of stored labor becomes especially clear during inflation. Prices rise, wages lag, and suddenly time feels stolen. Silver resists that theft. It doesn't multiply magically, but it doesn't decay easily either. Stability becomes its strength. People often underestimate the power of ownership that doesn't require explanation. You don't need to convince anyone of its value when the system is under stress. Value becomes obvious in moments when trust disappears. Physical silver sits quietly, waiting, doing nothing spectacular, and that's exactly the point. It doesn't demand attention, but it provides presence. It's there when you need it, unchanged by narratives, preserved across time, holding effort in its simplest form. Waiting for certainty feels responsible, but it's one of the most expensive habits in wealth building. People tell themselves they're being cautious, informed, patient. In reality, they're outsourcing decision-making to the crowd. Certainty usually arrives only after the opportunity has already shifted hands. By the time something feels safe, it's often crowded, overpriced, and restricted. Markets don't reward those who wait for guarantees. They reward those who understand probability and act before outcomes are obvious. The desire for certainty is emotional, not logical. It comes from fear of being wrong, fear of acting alone, fear of discomfort. But wealth has never been built in emotional safety. It's built in moments where clarity is incomplete, but direction is visible. Silver exposes this weakness clearly. When silver is quiet, ignored, and debated, people hesitate. They wait for confirmation from prices, from authorities, from media. They assume there will be a clear signal, a final green light. But silver's biggest moves have always begun when confidence was low and opinions were divided. The irony is that waiting for certainty doesn't reduce risk, it concentrates it. When you finally act with the crowd, you're exposed to the highest prices, the tightest supply, and the most emotional market conditions. Your margin for error disappears. At that point, even small mistakes are costly. Certainty also creates false confidence. People believe that because everyone agrees, the outcome is guaranteed. But consensus is often a warning, not a comfort. When an asset is universally accepted as valuable, the upside has usually been captured already. Those who build lasting wealth learn to act on incomplete information. They study patterns, cycles, incentives. They don't need perfect clarity, they need reasonable conviction. That conviction comes from understanding history, not predicting the future. Every major shift in financial conditions follows the same sequence. First, denial, then debate, then urgency, then regret. Certainty shows up between urgency and regret, when it's too late to benefit without taking excessive risk. The prepared investor operates earlier in the sequence. Silver sits in that early phase more often than people expect. It's underestimated, misunderstood, and frequently dismissed. That dismissal creates opportunity, but only for those willing to accept uncertainty. There's also a personal cost to waiting. It trains indecision. Each delay reinforces hesitation. Over time, people become observers of opportunity instead of participants. They collect information, but never convert it into action. Acting without certainty doesn't mean acting without discipline. It means sizing decisions appropriately. It means gradual accumulation instead of all-or-nothing bets. It means building positions while access is open and conditions are calm. The greatest risk isn't being wrong early. It's being forced to act late. Early mistakes can be corrected. Late mistakes are locked in. That's why experienced investors prefer being early and slightly wrong over being late and completely right. Silver rewards those who understand this. It doesn't explode upward immediately. It gives time to those who move ahead of confirmation. That time is the real advantage. Waiting feels safe because nothing happens. But nothing happening is exactly how opportunity passes unnoticed. Wealth doesn't disappear suddenly. It transfers quietly from those waiting for certainty to those willing to move without it. Discipline is the quiet force that outlasts every crisis. It doesn't chase excitement, it doesn't react to headlines, and it doesn't panic when conditions shift. In the world of silver and real assets, disciplined buyers are rarely the loudest voices, but they are the ones still standing when volatility clears. Inflation, market crashes, and policy changes all punish impulsive behavior. Discipline is what turns uncertainty into advantage. Consistent silver buyers understand that timing the perfect moment is far less important than building a steady position over time. They don't wait for prices to crash or explode. They buy when it makes sense, when access is available, and when emotions are calm. This approach removes pressure from decision-making and replaces it with process. Inflation is not a single event, it's a slow leak. It drains purchasing power quietly, year after year, often unnoticed until the damage is already done. Disciplined accumulation counters that leak. Each ounce purchased is a small act of resistance against erosion. Not dramatic, not urgent, but effective. During crises, the undisciplined suffer twice. First from the event itself, then from their reactions to it. They sell at lows, buy at highs, and move based on fear. Disciplined buyers don't need to be brave. They just need to follow their plan. That plan becomes a stabilizing force when emotions run high. Silver has a long history of punishing emotional extremes. When fear dominates, sellers accept poor prices. When greed dominates, buyers overpay. Discipline smooths those extremes. It allows accumulation during calm periods and restraint during mania. Many people believe they'll become disciplined once they have more money. In reality, discipline creates money. Habits scale before wealth does. Someone who can consistently buy small amounts of silver during ordinary times is far more prepared to manage larger positions during extraordinary times. Outlasting crises isn't about predicting them. It's about structuring behavior so that crises don't force bad decisions. Silver provides that structure when approached correctly. It's tangible, finite, and historically resilient. Those qualities reward patience. Disciplined buyers also think in cycles. They understand that nothing moves in straight lines. Pullbacks don't signal failure, and rallies don't signal inevitability. This perspective prevents overreaction and builds emotional endurance. Inflation eventually exposes everyone. Those without real assets feel it first. Those with discipline feel it last. That gap in experience is where advantage forms. By the time inflation becomes undeniable, disciplined buyers have already positioned themselves. There's a compounding effect to discipline that goes beyond financial returns. Confidence grows, stress decreases, decision-making improves. Knowing you're prepared changes how you experience uncertainty. Silver doesn't need constant management. It rewards those who let time do the work. That simplicity aligns well with disciplined behavior. You don't need to monitor it daily. You need to trust your process. In every crisis, there are two groups: those scrambling to protect what they have left, and those calmly waiting for the next opportunity. The difference between them isn't intelligence or luck. It's discipline built long before the crisis appeared. Financial freedom doesn't begin with a massive win or a perfect opportunity. It begins the moment someone decides to stop moving with the crowd and start thinking ahead of it. Most people don't lose because they choose badly. They lose because they choose late. They wait for social proof, for headlines, for reassurance. By the time the crowd agrees, the advantage is gone. Acting before the crowd feels uncomfortable because it removes the shield of consensus. There's no validation, no cheering section, no guarantee. But that discomfort is the entry price to freedom. If opportunity felt safe, everyone would take it early. The fact that most people hesitate is what creates the edge. Silver is a clear example of this principle. When it's ignored or mocked, it quietly offers opportunity. When it becomes popular, it becomes crowded. Those who act early benefit from access, pricing, and choice. Those who follow later deal with scarcity, premiums, and restrictions. Freedom is about options. Acting early preserves them. Acting late removes them. The crowd trades options for comfort, even though comfort is temporary. Early movers accept short-term discomfort in exchange for long-term control. Many people mistake confidence for arrogance. In reality, confidence comes from preparation. Acting before the crowd requires research, reflection, and conviction. It's not impulsive, it's deliberate. The goal isn't to be first, it's to be positioned before conditions change. History repeatedly shows that regulations, shortages, and market shifts don't happen suddenly. They build quietly. Those paying attention act during that buildup. Those distracted act after the impact. There's also a psychological shift that occurs when you stop following the crowd. You begin to trust your judgment. You stop outsourcing decisions to media narratives or popular opinion. That independence is a form of freedom most people never experience. Silver encourages this mindset because it's not flashy. It doesn't generate daily excitement. It rewards patience and conviction. Those qualities are easier to maintain when you're not seeking constant validation. The crowd is reactive by nature. It responds to price moves, headlines, and fear. Early actors respond to signals, incentives, and history. That difference in response time creates the gap where opportunity lives. Financial freedom isn't about escaping work or avoiding responsibility. It's about reducing vulnerability. It's about not being forced into decisions under pressure. Acting early reduces pressure. It gives you room to think and flexibility to move. Those who act before the crowd are often misunderstood at first. Their choices look unnecessary or overly cautious. Later, those same choices are labeled smart or lucky. The only difference is timing. Silver doesn't guarantee freedom, but it supports the behaviors that create it. Long-term thinking, early action, and independence from mass emotion. Those behaviors compound over time. The crowd will always move together. That's what crowds do. Freedom begins when you're willing to step aside, move earlier, and accept that validation usually arrives after the benefit has already been realized. And if this message resonates, if it sharpens your awareness, strengthens your resolve, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who still thinks they have unlimited time. Like this video so it reaches those who need it. Subscribe so you stay ahead, not behind. Because opportunities don't disappear loudly, they fade quietly. And those who act before the silence are the ones who build lasting wealth.